Okay, I think everything's stable. Let me just make sure my audio's in the right place. Pretty sure that's right. All right, we're going to be watching this, the Xbox Game Dev Update. Apparently, we may be getting something on the next Xbox. Don't know how true that is, but I guess we will find out. And then after this, we've got the Nacon Live, the Nacon Connect, which goes live very, very soon here in 114 minutes. We should actually get onto this.
I'm Annette Porter.
And I'm Chris Charla.
And we're so excited to welcome you and are glad you're joining us. It's an exciting time. We're focused on great games, the future of play, and a return to Xbox. And we can't wait to go on this journey with you. This is the Xbox Game Dev Spring Update. It's our moment to pause, to connect, and to look ahead together with game developers. We're here to share what's new, what's changing, and what we're learning across tools, platforms, and programs to help you build great games with Xbox. Today, you'll hear a mix of things: deep dives, practical updates from our teams, and clear takeaways you can use right away. Cases and looking back to key moments from the Game Developers Conference, which is what we're covering today. So, settle in, tell us what's useful, and let us know what you'd like to see. Now, let's get started with a look back at GDC. To kick us off, here's a Project Helix recap with Chris Charla and Jason Ronald.
Thanks, Annette. Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Charla, and today we've got a really special segment coming off one of the most exciting things we talked about at GDC. And of course, I'm talking about Project Helix, our next generation console. Helix sparked some huge conversations with the dev community that are really still ongoing. And, we all know when these sort of announcements happen, they typically happen at a big show, kind of E3 in the olden days or other big things. We were really proud to be able to announce Project Helix at GDC direct to developers. Unfortunately, not everyone can attend GDC. And while lots of people have read news reports and summaries, we're really proud today that we're going to bring you the actual conversation with Jason Ronald, where he introduced Project Helix to the world. So without further ado, allow me to introduce our VP of Next Generation, Jason Ronald, presenting Building with the Future of Xbox at GDC 2026 this past March.
Thank you guys very much. I'm excited to be here this morning and kicking off GDC for Xbox. GDC is one of the most exciting times of the year because it's the time that we as an industry get together and just really share our best practices, what we're learning, the challenges that we're facing. And for those of us on Team Xbox, this is really an opportunity to share how we think about the future of Xbox and how do we build it together with the developers in the room, the developers all around the world, and the community. Gaming's always been in Microsoft's DNA, and it was really funny putting this together because Microsoft Flight Simulator is the oldest franchise in the history of Microsoft. Microsoft Flight Simulator was released in 1982. 3 years before Windows itself had actually been released. And when you go back and you look at the screenshots with the eye-popping resolution of 320 by 200, the fact that you could run this in 64K of RAM, who would have ever thought we would need anything more than this? But to really think about where the industry's come in the last 40 years is nothing but remarkable. And it's really a testament to the creativity of everybody in this room and really pushing the boundaries of technical advancement so that we can continue to build these great immersive worlds that players love to spend their time in. And for 25 of those years, we've had Xbox. And Xbox has really been focused on how do we continue to bring people together across generations, bringing iconic franchises and games to players, and making sure that we really celebrate that shared love of play. And as we celebrate 25 years of Xbox, it's really about celebrating the people. It's the teams. I have so many great war stories from people that I've worked together with for over the last 20 years of me being at Xbox. The game developers who have put their heart and soul into some of the most iconic franchises you've ever played. The stories that we all have, the memories we have of playing with family members or friends or people who got married because they met together via gaming, there's just a huge opportunity. And then when we really think about it, there's over 5,000 developers currently building games for Xbox today. So as a longtime member of Team Xbox, I just really want to say thank you to everybody here and to all the game developers around the world for sharing your talent, for sharing your creativity, for sharing these epic games that we all know and love. And that's really what's made Xbox special for the last 25 years. And for 25 years, Xbox has redefined how the world plays. From day one, we've challenged ourselves to rethink how games are made, how they're played, how do you actually engage with them, and creating those memorable experiences for players. And that all started with the console. When we released the original Xbox, we designed it to be the premium living room gaming experience. And there was so much innovation in that console that today we just take for granted. But at the time, it was really disruptive. It really challenged a lot of assumptions. It was the first console to ever have a hard drive in it. At the time, it was kind of insane. Why would I put a hard drive in a game console? Also, at the time, it had an Ethernet port. Everybody's still gaming on 56K modems. And if you're old enough to remember what a 56K modem is, kudos, welcome to the club. But it was because we believed this idea of what ultimately came Xbox Live, bringing players together, sharing experiences. And at the time, that was all in the domain of the PC. We'd never seen it in game consoles before. Then you look at the Xbox 360, and that really introduced the HD era to gaming. It was the first console that had an online digital marketplace. Once again, I think everybody remembers Horse Armor. But now it's part of the lifeblood of the industry, because more opportunities for players to engage with their content and for developers to be successful. It also had Xbox Live deeply integrated into the fabric of the user experience. And this really was what created the Xbox community that many of us know and love today. Then you look at the Xbox One, the first time we ever did a mid-generation console update with the Xbox One X to usher in 4K gaming into the console market. It was also a major leap forward for backwards compatibility, being able to bring all of your games from prior generations forward with you. And then you even look at the Xbox Series X and S. It was the first time where we designed two consoles from day one so that we would have a high premium console for the most demanding players, but then you also had a more affordable entry point. And both consoles were able to play the exact same games. So through our entire generation, through our entire history, we've just really been focused on what do players want to experience? How can we help you as developers be successful on our platform? And that really informs everything that we do today. And that same focus on players has really guided where we're going with our next generation. Last summer, we announced a multi-year, multi-product strategic partnership with AMD to support our next generation of devices. Historically, console and PC technology innovate at different paces. And I think we've all experienced this over the years. I like to point out ray tracing as an example. Ray tracing has always been the holy grail of computer graphics, and it just was not practical for many, many years. But then it started to become real on the PC first. But you didn't really see developers start to adopt it until the current generation of consoles had hardware-accelerated ray tracing support, because you needed to be able to reach the largest audience possible, and it's hard for a developer if you can't count on that large addressable audience. We've done similar things in consoles, such as the invention of direct storage with the Xbox Series X and S. One of the biggest problems that we had was memory bandwidth was really constraining what you could do on the development side. So we really leaned into the technology of SSDs. We invented new APIs and new capabilities with direct storage, and then over time we brought them to PC. And so I think one of the fundamental things that we're doing differently with this generation is we're really trying to, as opposed to designing one piece of silicon for an individual device, we're now designing a family of silicon that will work across many different form factors, from your console to a handheld. And the same technologies that we're introducing will also show up in AMD's discrete GPU roadmap in the same chips that power the cloud. Because ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide one common platform for game developers so that you can design and optimize your games and have confidence that they can run well across a whole spectrum of devices. And last week, we publicly acknowledged we are working on our next generation console, codenamed Project Helix. And the entire design of the console is to usher in the next generation of console gaming by advancing the state of the art and really breaking a lot of these barriers down that I was just talking about. So when we talk about Project Helix is designed to play your Xbox console and PC games, delivering high performance and providing the ultimate player-first experience. We're partnering closely with AMD to define the next generation of rendering and simulation. Project Helix is powered by a custom AMD-based SoC, and it's co-designed for the next generation of DirectX. Project Helix brings intelligence directly into the graphics and compute pipeline, delivering step change functions and gains in efficiency, scale, and visual ambition. And we have great talks throughout this entire week where we're really going into a lot of the depth of the future of DirectX. Beyond the SoC, it also includes an order of magnitude increase in ray tracing performance and capability beyond what's currently possible with the Xbox Series X and S. It also unlocks GPU-directed work graph execution, eliminating CPU bottlenecks, meaning that the GPU can actually generate its own workloads in real time, delivering a massive uplift in performance and enabling massive real-time simulations in large, complex worlds using runtime generated geometry and large-scale interactive worlds that players actually want to engage with. The other thing when we think about this is Project Helix is really designed for the next generation of neural-assisted rendering. We've reached some of the limitations of what's possible with traditional rendering techniques. And if we want to continue to advance the state of the art, we have to invent brand new technology. And the key part of that is how we're integrating AMD FSR, the next version of AMD FSR, into Project Helix and into the Xbox Game Development Kit. And this is really designed for that next generation of neural rendering techniques, whether that's neural materials, whether that's generated images, or even if you think about things like the latest ML-based upscaling techniques or super resolution techniques. You think about brand new ML-based multi-frame generation. And there's even new capabilities such as a brand new ray regeneration technique that's really designed to deliver high performance ray tracing for both real-time ray tracing and path tracing. Another area that we're really focused on with Project Helix is what we call deep texture compression. I think if you look across the industry right now, and if you look at the massive increases in storage prices and memory prices, if we want to continue to push the boundaries, we also need to invent brand new techniques that allows us to leverage the hardware in much more efficient ways while still making gaming accessible. And I think this is a responsibility and really a call to action across the entire industry. There's a ton of work that we can do on the hardware side. There's a ton of work that we can do on the software side. But it's also about how you take advantage of this as developers. And so when we talk about deep texture compression, that includes the latest neural texture compression techniques. But we're also leaning in very heavily into Z standard as well. So that is a capability that allows you to use the latest version of direct storage and be able to stream assets directly off of the storage drive and be much more sensitive in how you're actually using memory because you can actually stream it directly off of the SSD itself. And I'm excited to share that we are going to send alpha versions of Project Helix to developers starting in 2027. And we're already on this next generation journey with a lot of the things that you'll hear about this week, as well as our latest GDK that came out in fall of last year. And we'll have so much more to talk about Project Helix over the coming months. Now let's pivot a little bit and talk about the future of play. Not only has technology fundamentally changed, but player behaviors have also changed. The days of people defining themselves as I'm a console gamer, or I'm a PC gamer, or I'm a mobile gamer don't really exist anymore. The biggest games in the world play across many different screens, whether that's your console, whether that's your PC, maybe it's on your smartphone or VR, or even being able to stream from the cloud down directly to a smart TV. The biggest games are playable across multiple screens, and the most engaged gamers play across multiple devices. So we've really had to rethink, like, how do we build an ecosystem? How do we build hardware? How do we build the development tools in a world where players are going to play across multiple different devices? Also, I think many of us in this room, we've loved this hobby for many years, and we built libraries across many different storefronts. I have the games that I bought from Xbox. I have games that I have access to via a Game Pass subscription. I also have games that I purchased in other leading storefronts. And as a player, I want to remove those barriers. My library is my library. These are my games. These are the things that I have these treasured memories around. So why should I have to go between different user interfaces or pick up this device to play that game? We want to break down the artificial barriers that exist between PC and console games because that's what players are asking for. Modern players grew up in a very different world. They don't think about the world in such as, this game should only run on this device. They grew up in a world where their media is available on any screen. And we as the game industry need to move towards that model. And we as Xbox have to design and build the platform that makes that easy not only for players, but also for developers. And then the last thing is we really look at how players play now, it really has to be deeply personal to me as a player. We all love video games, but I guarantee if I pulled everybody in this room, we all play very different video games. You know, sometimes I'm feeling like in an ultra competitive mode and I really want to go in and, worry about my KD ratio and where am I on the leaderboard? Sometimes I want something cozy and creative. So even myself, my moods change, my tastes change. And then if I'm in the game, let's say we're all playing the same game, we might play it fundamentally differently. I might choose to be a tank. You might choose to be a healer. I might want to be a sniper. You may love the passion of a close quarter combat with a shotgun. The reality is when you look at the next generation of players, what's deeply important to them is that they can find their next favorite game and they can see themselves in the worlds that you create. And so just like we talked about with the history of the Xbox console, this is really informing how we think about the future of play and what we need to design and build as a platform. As part of that, what we've really learned is, as we look at it, PC is becoming an increasingly important part of the Xbox experience. To the point that last year, in 2025, we had the peak number of players, Xbox players, playing with Xbox on PC than we've ever had in our past. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're bringing the best of Xbox to Windows itself, to make Windows itself a great operating system for games wherever I may choose to play. And an early version of this is what you saw with the ROG Xbox Ally. I've been around Xbox for about 20 years. I think for 20 of those 20 years, people have asked us to get into the handheld space. We've looked at it for many different times, but this felt like finally the right opportunity. We saw the momentum that was happening in the ecosystem. We saw all these great experiences. But at the same time, too, we wanted to bring in a distinctly Xbox flavor to that. So even though the ROG Xbox Ally is powered by Windows under the covers, I never see Windows. I jump into a direct Xbox first experience that allows me to see all of my games in my library. Those are the games that I purchased from Xbox, I have access to via Xbox Game Pass. It also includes games that I can stream from the cloud. And I can also play games that are installed from other leading storefronts. Because once again, I never want to have to leave that experience to go find a game just because I bought it from somewhere else or I got access to it in another way. We're also constantly listening to feedback from players. We're really excited to have Auto SR and highlight reels, both of which are in preview right now. They will be released to players in the coming months. And it's really about this constant iteration, this constant evolution, this constant improvement that we want to go deliver. We also have taken a lot of the things that we've learned from Xbox to really improve this experience, such as advanced shader delivery. This is a problem that we've solved in consoles for probably, the last 10, 15 years. And I will say for me, as a player, there's nothing more frustrating than when I go and launch a game on my PC, I'm super excited, I downloaded it, I'm ready to go, and then all of a sudden you get the infamous progress bar. Shaders compiling. And it's like, oh, this is gonna take a minute. Maybe it'll take 2 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, where did all my game time go? Because I was just waiting for this. So we created a technology called Advanced Shader Delivery that launched first with the ROG Xbox Ally. And there'll be talks later this week where they talk about how we're expanding access to Advanced Shader Delivery and making it easier for developers to more directly integrate it into your pipelines. Because ultimately our North Star is we want to make sure that we're getting players into the fun as quickly as possible. Another good example of a feature that we've created for the ROG Xbox Ally is default game profiles. You know, now that you're running in a world where you have a battery and it's a handheld form factor, you always have to find that optimal balance between performance and battery life. And so with default game profiles, we have the ability to fine-tune the performance of a game with no extra work by game developers, to maybe give it a little bit more power when we need to maintain a very stable frame rate. Or maybe even reducing the frame rate of the game, but keeping it consistent because now I can get more hours of play out of it and when it's actually in a mobile form factor. So this is another example of a feature that we created that started on the Xbox Ally. We're continuing to improve it. We're continuing to expand access to it. But I think the part that's really important is, more than anything, I want to say thank you to all the developers and the players who have been playing on this, because we listen to the feedback constantly, and the feedback that we get from the community directly influences our forward plans. So thank you to everybody who's providing feedback, and know that this experience will continue to improve entirely based on the feedback of the community. And based on that feedback, one of the pieces of feedback that we got was everybody wanted the same experience on their PC, to the point that people were actually figuring out how, via registry hacks, to actually enable this on a PC before we were even planning on announcing it. So I am proud to announce that Xbox Mode will be coming to Windows 11 in select markets starting in April. And this is just really leaning in and making sure that no matter where you choose to play, you get a distinctly Xbox experience. And so all of the same features, or many of the same technologies that we introduced with the Xbox Ally are now available on your desktop and on your laptop. The difference is, in those devices, when I'm at work, and trust me, don't do this, but I sometimes am at work and I don't play games at work. But I can be at work, but then when I'm at lunch or at the end of the day, I can actually switch directly into Xbox mode, and I get that full fidelity experience that feels very console-like, feels very similar to the ROG Xbox Ally experience. It puts my games front and center. It puts my library front and center, including those games that have been installed from other storefronts. It also recognizes the fact that most players play on average 3 to 5 games at any one time. So my most recently used list of games, it doesn't matter where you played them last. It could have been via the cloud. It could have been on my console. It could have been on my PC. Those games are always instantly available right in front of you, because this is what players actually want, is they want their content front and center. Another area of feedback that we've gotten from the community is, as players are starting to play with Xbox across multiple screens, they're noticing a lot of fragmentation within the experience. Maybe we have different filters in, say, the PC experience versus the console experience. Or, hey, I know where my friends are here, but it's in a slightly different experience over here. And so what the team's been doing behind the scenes is they're doing a lot of work to really deliver a consistent experience. So it feels very familiar and it feels very distinctly Xbox, no matter where you actually are choosing to play. Because as a player, if I choose to move between screens, I shouldn't have to learn new user interfaces just based on the screen that I'm on. That doesn't mean you're going to have the exact same user experience, because we think about things like screen size. We think about things such as input modalities. But this is really designed around a consistent, familiar, distinctly Xbox experience wherever you choose to play. This also applies to developers as well. We know in a cross-device world, today in the Xbox ecosystem, most developers are actually managing 2 different versions of their game. You generally have your Xbox version of your game or your console version of the game. A lot of times this requires access to special SDKs or different versions of middleware. Sometimes developers have a customized version of the engine itself. But the vast majority of developers are also shipping their games on PC. And so we've done a tremendous amount of work with the GDK to bring the GDK together into a unified experience, but we still know that there's too much friction for developers here. If you really look at it, the vast majority of the code that your game runs on the Xbox is the exact same code that runs on other platforms. So just like for players where we want to streamline that experience, we also want to streamline that experience for developers as well. So in the future, what we're working on is really bringing these development models together so that you can have one common development pipeline, but you still have full access to all the things you would absolutely expect from Xbox. The Xbox GDK continues to exist. It provides access to a ton of different technologies, access to my Xbox identity, things like achievements, things like multiplayer, things like family safety, things that players love and expect from an Xbox-powered experience. But we're also making the platform itself much more analogous across multiple devices. And ultimately, we've designed this in such a way that it can more naturally integrate into your development pipelines. So this is an area that we've spent a tremendous amount of time traveling around the world, meeting with developers of all different sizes, because we want to make sure it fits naturally into your development processes, as opposed to creating a lot of friction for you as developers that take you away from the great things that make your game. Another good example of this is, over the years, we've built some best-in-class performance tools and debugging tools. And there's a great talk later this week where we'll talk about how we're bringing console-level shader debugging and console-level profiling to Windows itself. Because just because you're building a game, whether you choose to ship it on PC or console, you shouldn't have to learn a completely new tool set, or you shouldn't be at a disadvantage. And these are some of the biggest updates to DirectX and Pix that have happened in more than a decade. And it's just really focused on developers and how can we help you be more successful, how can we lower your development costs, and then also allow you to reach a much larger audience of players wherever they actually choose to play. And a key part of this is Xbox Play Anywhere. Like I said, the biggest games are now playable across screens. And within our community, Xbox Play Anywhere is one of the most beloved features. And Xbox Play Anywhere starts, first and foremost, with cross-progression. You know, as somebody who's been playing in the Xbox ecosystem for quite some time, there's nothing more frustrating than when you start a game, let's say I started on my console, and then I'm on the road and I pick up my ROG Xbox Ally, fire up the game, and it says, "Welcome, player one, here's the tutorial." And I'm like, I already understand the mechanics. Or I have to start a new character, and I'm like, I've already got a build that I love, I've already gotten immersed in the lore, and I really understand it, and I wanted to get into my game experience. And so at its core of Xbox Play Anywhere is enabling cross-progression. But it's also about a unified entitlement as well. You know, I don't think of it as, this is the PC version of the game, this is the console version of the game. I just want to play the game. And so when you purchase an Xbox Play Anywhere title, you're given the entitlement to be able to play on any screen. And that's really important to really deliver that seamless experience, especially when you think about the next generation of players who they're used to this kind of behavior in other kinds of media. And not only is Xbox Play Anywhere good for players, it's also good for developers as well. And so when you look at the players who prefer to play Xbox Play Anywhere titles, these are the most engaged players within our ecosystem. They play on average more than 2 times the same number of hours as other players. They also purchase more than 2 times those number of games. And these players actively seek out Xbox Play Anywhere games. So when they're looking for their next favorite game, oftentimes they will explicitly look for what other games support Xbox Play Anywhere, because the game responds to how they actually want to play. And I'm excited to share today the catalog for Xbox Play Anywhere games has more than 1,500 titles in it, including titles from some of the biggest publishers in the industry. Because as we go talk to developers, they see the same trends that we do. They see the same opportunity that they do. And so there's a huge opportunity to really lean into this and start building games for the way that modern players play games. And it has real tangible business impact for you as developers. And we can't talk about games without talking about game preservation. Game preservation is deeply personal for me. I have so many personal stories of, games that maybe my son has played, and it's like the game came out before he was even born. But for him, yes, it might be an old game for me. It's a brand new game for him. And I fundamentally believe that great games are timeless. And not only is this something that's deeply personal to us, it's also being one of the largest publishers in the industry, and one of the largest platforms in the industry, we feel a deep responsibility to preserve the games from the past. Not only do we want to preserve those games, but we also want to take advantage of the latest technology to enable them to be played in entirely new ways. I think about features like Auto HDR as an example. Being able to put HDR on top of a game that was created before HDR even existed, it feels entirely new. It feels very fresh. I think about features like FPS boost, where we take games that were originally designed to run at a certain frame rate, and now we're able to run it at a significantly higher frame rate. It almost feels like a remaster for a lot of players. And then I also think about a game like Fusion Frenzy. When Fusion Frenzy was created for the original Xbox, the developers at Blitz Games could have never imagined a future 25 years later where their game is being streamed from the cloud to a smartphone. When Fusion Frenzy was created, HD didn't even exist, let alone smartphones and game streaming. And so with all of these new technologies, there's entirely new ways that we can not only preserve and protect the games from the past, but be able to actually enable them to be played in entirely new ways. So the game preservation team has been working very hard in the background for a number of years. And as part of our 25th anniversary later this year, they will release some iconic games from the past that are now going to be able to be played in entirely new ways. And this shows our commitment to game preservation and enabling these games to be played by the next generation of players in ways that are very familiar for them. So when we think about the future of Xbox and the next generation of Xbox, we really think about it in a couple of categories. First, the console. The console is absolutely core to Xbox. It is the heart of who we are. It will always be around and is critically important to our future. So we're investing very heavily in Project Helix to really usher in the next generation of console gaming. We continue to be really excited by the handheld, and we're seeing just tremendous growth in the handheld market. And I will say for me personally as a player, it has fundamentally transformed how and when I play games. It just gives me that many more opportunities to engage with the art form that I know and love, and it's my preferred form of entertainment. And then also we have a lot of innovation coming in the accessories space. In a world where players play across multiple different devices, you have to be able to have your controller move across screens with you. The controller is also the physical connection between a player and the games that you create. So how can we drive deeper immersion and higher fidelity into that experience while players choose to play across any screen that they choose to? But ultimately, it's all founded in incredible games. Everything that we do at the platform layer is in service to you as developers and in service to the games that you create. We have an incredible lineup of games coming out later this year. Some of our most iconic first-party franchises are returning this year, but we also have incredible games coming from the biggest publishers in the world to some of the most innovative, creative ideas from the independent development community. So everything that we do at Xbox is in service of the games that you build, and ultimately we want to design and build this platform together with you. And with that, I just really want to say from my heart, thank you to developers all around the world. Thank you to all the developers here in San Francisco for GDC. We couldn't do this without you. We are only successful if you are successful on our platform. And we need your feedback to make sure that we're designing and building the platform for the next generation of players and developers.
Wow, that was a fantastic session. It is always cool to see just the moment these, announcements come into the world. Thanks to everybody for watching this important update from Jason at GDC. We're super excited to hear more from you about what you think about Project Helix, and we can't wait to share more details about the next generation of Xbox in the future. Please stay tuned. So up next, we're going to go over to Travis Bradshaw, a veteran dev who was
That's interesting. Okay. So I was actually reading on Twitter like less than 5 minutes ago that apparently most of this was basically just a recap of shit we already knew. Which it sucks a little bit, but it's still a generally very interesting conversation. And considering I haven't actually watched it myself, yeah, it made for an interesting conversation, or an interesting thing to watch, I guess you could say. So, yeah, I think I'll keep watching.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here. Chris and Jason just walked you through Project Helix updates. I want to focus on the developer tools they mentioned. What we're shipping to make Xbox a faster, simpler place to build.
Like, to be honest, like I've still got like, where is it? It's still got like an hour and a half until they can connect. So I'm just gonna keep watching.
3 threads, making it easier to build.
I do need to mute for like 5 minutes. I'll just be right back.
Getting your game onto every screen players are using and backing it with services that take work off your plate. Let's get into it. First, onboarding. If you looked at becoming an Xbox developer a few years ago, you know what that used to mean. Weeks of waiting, paperwork, NDAs, approvals, real momentum killer. We've heard that feedback, we've been investing heavily, and here's where it stands today. 30 minutes to a working dev environment. Not weeks, 30 minutes. We've actually completed a speed run of the whole thing, sign up to a build running in the Xbox app in under an hour. 3 things made that possible. Onboarding is now modular. Each step unlocks capabilities for the developer independently, so you can start building before the full approval lands. Agreements are now automated, over 90% less handling time, no waiting on someone in an office. And the big one, the game development kit and the full developer documentation are public. No NDA, no permission gate. Open a terminal, run win-git install Microsoft Gaming GDK, and you're building. The trajectory is clear, from weeks to 30 days to under an hour. The distance between I'm curious about shipping a game on Xbox and I'm building on Xbox has never been shorter. If you haven't shipped on Xbox before, gamedev.microsoft.com is your front door. Now let's talk about backend services. At GDC, we announced Foundation Mode for PlayFab. Every Xbox developer gets PlayFab's core game services cross-platform at no additional cost. No Azure subscription needed, no payment instrument, no monthly bills, all included in your Xbox platform agreement. Foundation Mode covers 7 services, but you can think about them in 3 groups. Identity and social is a unified player identity across Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, Steam, Epic, and mobile, plus friends, groups, leaderboards, and chat. Multiplayer and saves, cross-platform game saves, matchmaking, and multiplayer networking on Azure's global infrastructure. And finally, live game operations, which has your economy, live ops game management, and telemetry streaming from every platform you ship on. And here's the practical part. You don't have to wait until launch. The moment you commit to shipping on Xbox, you can start building with all of this. Foundation Mode is in public preview right now. Go to gamedev.microsoft.com for everything you need to get started. Next, where your game actually runs, because that picture is getting wider every year. We talked about this at GDC. Xbox started as a single console, and today it sits at the center of a much wider environment. Windows desktops, laptops, handhelds, and more. The data backs up why this matters. More than half of players move between devices, and games that support Xbox Play Anywhere see over 2 times the play hours of games that don't. Players want to start your game on the couch and then keep going on the go. And the Surface keeps growing. The Xbox experience is now available on ARM-based Windows 11 devices. Every new device class that joins the Windows family extends the reach of what you've already built. Pair that with Xbox mode, which Jason mentioned earlier. Players choose between the Xbox experience and the classic Windows experience whenever they want. On handhelds, Xbox mode even frees up extra memory for your game to run. Now, wider reach is only useful if it doesn't multiply your development cost, so we've been investing on the workflow side too. Xbox PC remote tools are in public preview. If you've ever burned hours setting up remote Windows test devices, fighting firewall configs, or copying full builds across the network just to test on a handheld, this is the work we've been doing to remove that friction. The Xbox PC remote tools include 4 components. Xbox PC Toolbox lets you securely provision and pair remote Windows devices in minutes, no more manual setup. Xbox PC Remote Debugger is a Visual Studio extension on the public Visual Studio Marketplace. Hit F5 to deploy, launch, and attach to a remote device. Remote iteration command line tools plug into your scripts and CI pipelines, and remote iteration APIs let you bake all of this into your custom engine or toolchain. 4 pieces, 1 purpose. Get your build onto a remote device and a debugger attached fast. And worth highlighting, incremental deployment. Instead of copying your entire build across the network every time, it sends only the files you've changed. That speeds up your iteration cycle significantly. And these tools work with any Windows game, regardless of storefront. There's no Microsoft GDK dependency. There's not even an Xbox PC app dependency to use these tools. The takeaway is you can build for Windows once and the ecosystem carries you. Today it's PCs, laptops, and handhelds. Tomorrow it's whatever Windows device joins the family next. Build on Windows, test anywhere, iterate faster without multiplying your dev cost. The Xbox PC Toolbox is available now in the Microsoft Store. One more thing before I hand it back. GDC didn't ship all of our news. The April 2026 GDK dropped recently, and there are 4 things in it I want to flag for you. First, preview support for the native ARM64 libraries across the GDK, Xbox Network Services, and PlayFab libraries, which pairs directly with the ARM Windows story I just walked through earlier. Second, Visual Studio 2026 support, so you can build on the latest tooling. Third, we've made several quality of life improvements to the sandbox experience that take some of the confusion out of managing packages across sandboxes, and there will be more to come there. And fourth, MSI XVC2, the next generation of PC game package format from Xbox, is now available for testing with your game, so you can see how much faster you'll run soon. If you're already on the GDK, grab this release. If you haven't tried it yet, the front door is open. And with that, I'm excited to welcome Sean Hargraves to share with us the State of the Union for DirectX.
Thank you, Travis. I'm Sean Hargreaves. I lead the DirectX team, and I am here to talk about everything that's going on in the world of DirectX. So I'm going to look backwards a little bit to some features that we've released over the last year, and then spend most of this time looking forward to what's coming up in the world of DirectX. So looking backwards, over the course of 2025, we've shipped a number of big features and some smaller features. Many of those things have gone out through releases of the DirectX 12 Agility SDK. We've included things such as Tiled Resource Tier 4, which enables more efficient resource management. A couple of big features in ray tracing, opacity micromaps and shader execution reordering enable higher quality, more detailed ray tracing for things like foliage that were previously very expensive. We also released the high-level shader language, Shader Model 6.9, supporting those features, with a bunch of other new things in the shader compiler. We've been doing a bunch of work on tooling, releasing 6 different versions of PIX over the course of the year. We released Direct Storage 1.3, which improves asset streaming for high-performance loading in games, and an early version of Advanced Shader Delivery, which I'm going to talk more about later in a looking forward section. I'm not going to go into details of everything on this list here, but at the end of this section, I'm going to share a link to the team blog where you can learn more if you're interested in details of any of this work that the team's been doing. Mostly, though, I'm excited to look forward to what's coming up in the world of DirectX. And the team is working on a whole bunch of things that you can really kind of focus into 5 big pushes around areas that we see as being very important to improving the quality of gaming across Windows and also on Xbox, which is also powered by DirectX. And I'm going to go through each of these topics separately and talk about the work we're doing towards improving each of them. So the first big area is machine learning. What does that mean for the rendering pipeline? And when I say machine learning in rendering, I'm not talking about like large language models and generative AI, although there are also lots of interesting things going on there. I'm really talking about like small models that do very specific things integrated tightly into the conventional rendering of a 3D frame in a game. And so some of the things that we've seen already in this space are things like upscaling to improve the resolution and add more detail beyond what the GPU is capable of conventionally rendering, generating more frames using ML to improve the frame rate, things like denoising that can make ray tracing more efficient and produce higher quality images. And then there's a lot of really exciting research going on around using ML techniques for things like texture compression, shading, caching radiance, and animation that is showing very, very promising signs that these techniques can produce more detail more efficiently and higher quality graphics. But there's a huge challenge in this space, and that's that there is not really today, or there has not been until recently, a programming model that would allow someone to implement a technique like this and then deploy it, ship a game that is going to run that workload efficiently across different hardware. You can do something that goes deep on a specific GPU from a specific vendor. But no game developer wants to re-implement their techniques 10 times for 10 different pieces of silicon. So we needed a generalized abstraction, and that's exactly what DirectX does. That's why my team exists, like why we're here. And so we've been working on this problem. And we recently, actually just earlier this week, released a preview of a new feature in DirectX called linear algebra. And this extends the capability of HLSL shaders to include matrix-matrix operations and matrix-vector operations, which are the fundamental building blocks of any kind of machine learning. And these operations are optimized in HLSL so they can take advantage of dedicated tensor hardware on the GPU. And for the first time, this allows developers to implement small ML model inference for things like radiance caching or texture compression. This can be tightly tied into the existing pipeline. So you could do these little inferences like in the middle of a pixel shader or in the middle of your ray tracing pipeline. And this will run efficiently across any hardware, any GPU. So this is wildly exciting. It leaves one piece on the table, which is linear algebra is great when your model is fairly simple and small. But there are a number of interesting graphics techniques like upscaling or frame generation that really need a larger model. They want a model with multiple layers, more going on. You could implement that kind of large model using linear algebra, but it would be a huge amount of work to get it optimized and just handle all of the complexity. And to solve that problem, we've also recently announced a new feature called the DirectX Compute Graph Compiler. And what this lets you do is bring an entire model into the world of DirectX, compile it into something that can run efficiently on the hardware. And this is tightly integrated into Direct3D12. So it's running on existing GPU queues. So you can move very efficiently back and forth between render some stuff, do an inference using the Compute Graph Compiler, and then continue rendering doing ray tracing or existing compute shader techniques. So we're really excited about both of these technologies. They sit at different levels in the stack, solving slightly different problems. And the combination of both of these means that it is now going to be possible to ship machine learning techniques that run efficiently across any GPU using DirectX. And this is going to empower developers to start using these techniques to improve graphics and rendering quality. Improving rendering quality through ML is great, but there are also a lot of non-ML techniques that are still interesting and we're still hard at work on. One of the perpetual things in the world of DirectX has been pushing the boundary of what's possible. And this means scale of like how big can a world be? How many things can be in the world? How much detail? How realistic do they look? How much detail is there in the shading? And this has been a perpetual motion for DirectX. Every year, GPUs get bigger, they get more capable. We need to expose those capabilities in DirectX. And we're still hard at work on that. Anytime we think like, are we done? Have we made the perfect API? The answer is always no. There's some developer out there thinking, I see that game that was big and beautiful, and I want to make one that's bigger, and I want to have a larger world with more stuff in it. Today, the kind of bleeding edge of ray tracing fidelity is ray tracing. And the folk who are really pushing the limits of what's possible with ray tracing have given us some great feedback on where they're encountering limitations. And really, those limitations are around the size of what's possible. When you have huge worlds with lots of detail in them and lots of instances, things just start to fall over. And so we're working on some features to solve this. The main ones being clustered geometry, which is going to allow more detail, higher fidelity, higher triangle count instances to get fed into a BVH build and handled more efficiently. We have support for compressed positions coming, which will just save memory. And then the really big stuff is we're working on a system for partitioning acceleration structures into multiple pieces that can get rebuilt independently on the GPU timeline using indirect operations. This reduces the need for fine-grained synchronization between the CPU and GPU, and it will let games rebuild just portions of a BVH or reuse portions so that overall the world can be bigger and they can update just the things that are changing. This stuff is going to be coming to public preview later this summer. We're going to release it to retail by the end of the year if all goes well. And the really exciting thing is this is all going to be supported on existing hardware. Often when we add a feature to DirectX, it needs new GPUs to enable it. And so we're kind of waiting on a hardware upgrade cycle before games can really start taking full advantage. These ray tracing improvements are all driver software changes. So when this new functionality ships, this is going to run on the vast majority of existing ray tracing capable installed GPUs. So this is something that games can immediately start using and getting benefits from to just do more and be more ambitious with ray tracing. So that's all great. Now we've been able to make games that use ray tracing to be bigger and they use ML to be more detailed and more realistic. But there's another problem kind of lingering behind all of that. What if the game just crashes? Nobody's into games that crash. And the reality today is that when you do complicated things on the GPU, you might make mistakes as a developer and hang the hardware, or there might be a bug in the driver that hangs the hardware, or a bug in DirectX itself or in Windows that hangs the hardware. And when this happens, there isn't really a good way to debug it. The current technology for debugging hangs on the GPU feels like it's very primitive, almost back in the Stone Ages. So we hear a lot from developers who say that it can take months to figure out a GPU hang and root cause it so that it can be fixed. Developers are using techniques like guesswork, telepathy, reading tea leaves, just laboriously reading through code, trying to find a mistake, and just reviewing hundreds of thousands of lines of complicated code looking for an error. There isn't currently any technology to just actually investigate the crash when it happens and try and figure out why did that take place. Until now. So to solve this problem, we are introducing a new feature called DirectX dump files. This is a dump file that's going to be created when the GPU crashes. We're going to go and gather up all of the hardware state, the software state, what was Windows doing, what was the driver doing, what was happening in the video memory management kernel. We're going to put this all into the file. These files will be supported by all hardware vendors across the Windows ecosystem. These files can be created on development machines at development time. Also, you can collect them from end users when GPUs are crashing out in the wild. And then you can load this file into Pix, analyze it, and understand what's going on. And this is going to really move the needle on how easily and completely developers can fix crash problems. But that's not all we're doing here. We have a bigger ambition. And that's really to bring the level of tooling that has existed for GPU debugging and profiling on consoles to Windows as well. And those of you who've worked on both platforms have been aware for a long time that tools on Xbox have been just better than what Windows has. And that's kind of for obvious reasons. Xbox is a vertically integrated ecosystem with a fixed piece of hardware. And so we've been able to build tools that are very specific to Xbox. It's much harder to do that in an ecosystem where there are many GPUs from many vendors and lots of different drivers. But that's the challenge the team is taking on. We're about probably halfway through the journey. We've done a lot of big stuff to improve Pix. We have a lot more to do. And we have one big thing coming. There's a release of Pix coming in just later this month, if all goes well, possibly next month, if it takes a little bit longer. The team is scrambling right now to get all this stuff ready to release. But this release is going to combine DirectX dump files, also Shader Explorer, which is a very popular feature from Xbox Pix that we are bringing to Windows across every GPU that makes it easy to optimize shaders. We're bringing debug break to HLSL, a whole bunch of stuff around Dr. Pix, better hardware counters, more efficiency in Pix, and features for debugging machine learning and linear algebra. This all combines to be by far the biggest wave of new tooling that we've ever brought to Windows in one release. We're not done at this. We have lots more we're going to roll on to do next in Pix, but I'm super excited for this release to come out and empower developers to solve problems and just make games better. So now we have games that use ray tracing better, they use machine learning, and they can be debugged and optimized easily. We're still not done. There's another huge problem in the Windows ecosystem, which is caused by shader compilation. And most of you are probably very well aware with this of what this issue is. But fundamentally, what's happening is that when a developer writes a shader and compiles it, that compilation just goes down to an intermediate format, usually Dixel, maybe SPIRV. And that's what they ship with the game. And then at runtime, on the end user machine, the driver has to compile that intermediate representation into the actual format that the GPU understands. And that compilation takes some time. If the game does the compilation while it's loading, you just get a load screen that sits there for ages with a progress bar saying, please wait, compiling shaders. And that might take 20 minutes before you can get into gameplay, which nobody enjoys. If the game compiles the shaders during gameplay when it encounters the need for a new one, you maybe get a problem where you just fired a weapon and an explosion happens and the game realizes, oh, I haven't compiled the shader for rendering that explosion yet. So it goes off and does it. And now you get a glitch while the compilation happens, and that messes with gameplay. Xbox has never had this problem because on a fixed hardware platform, the game can just compile all the way down to Xbox hardware format at development time. But on Windows, obviously, you can't do that when different PCs might just need a different format of shaders to run on the hardware. And so to solve this, we are introducing a new feature called Advanced Shader Delivery. And the idea here is that game studios will package up all the shaders used by a game and publish them to the store as part of publishing the game. The store will then compile the shaders for all the different GPUs that exist and download the right package of compiled shaders to each machine where a gamer can get just the exact binary that they need. This is a big push across a lot of people. It needs game studios to participate in making their shaders available. It needs stores to participate in doing all of the kind of plumbing and downloading things. And it needs hardware vendors to participate in enabling this functionality in their drivers. And Microsoft and the DirectX team is really at the center of pulling all of these pieces together to make this happen. We have shipped a first version of this on the Xbox ROG Ally handheld device, where it's generated some really good results. And we're now in the process of broadening this. The goal is to enable this across more games, more devices, more different GPUs, and more storefronts. So over the months to come, you can expect to see advanced shader delivery rolling out in more and more places. And ultimately, our goal is to have this everywhere, across every game, every store, every GPU, so that shader compilation glitches are just a thing of the past. The fifth and final area I want to talk about where we're investing is in asset streaming. Our investment here is driven by an observation that we made really like 5 years ago now, that was that memory sizes are not increasing very much anymore, but games keep getting bigger. And at the same time as this, SSD drive transfer speeds have been increasing. So in a world where you have a bigger game trying to fit into a not bigger amount of memory, but you can load things very quickly, and a kind of obvious direction is, well, okay, what if we just move things in and out of memory quickly? Then we can just swap in and out what do we need at any given moment rather than just keeping all of the data loaded all of the time. And to address this, we introduced a technology called direct storage. This has been out for a while now on both Xbox and Windows. The goal of direct storage was to make that loading of data off of SSD drives as fast as possible. It does this by batching I/O requests to reduce CPU overhead, and then also by having very efficient hot decompression with as much acceleration as possible so that the decompression can keep up with this very high speed of the SSD drive. On Xbox, direct storage uses a compression technique called zlib, which is implemented in the Xbox hardware. On PC, direct storage uses a compressor called gdeflate, which runs on the GPU in a shader. And that's worked okay, but we're not done. We're basically in the middle of a push at the moment to bring more Xbox optimizations to the whole ecosystem. So we're doing a bunch of work to change Windows to make the very low-level SSD I/O more efficient, to remove overhead from the I/O stack and the kernel. And we're also doing work on the decompression itself. It's obviously not ideal to be using a different decompression codec on Xbox versus on Windows. And so we've been looking at, where would we find a codec that had great compression ratio, was like freely available, not encumbered by any IP or licensing restrictions, and that also had kind of a widespread ecosystem of adoption and tools around it. And we've landed on the codec that meets that set of needs is called Z Standard. That is it's a great codec. It delivers really good compression ratios. It's very efficient to decompress, and it's growing in support across the industry. And so we have selected Z Standard as the compression codec to use going forward across all of DirectX and all of the Windows and Xbox ecosystem. We recently released a preview of Direct Storage version 1.4, which includes preview support for Z Standard. And we're excited to have people go and try that out and give us feedback on it and start using it. Yeah, we're at the early stages of this transition, but the intent here is that every game should opt into Z Standard, and every device should be good at efficiently loading and decompressing this data. Along with Direct Storage 1.4, we also introduced a new technology called the Game Asset Conditioning Library, or GACL. This is an open source library that's available on GitHub. And the goal of this is to improve the compression efficiency of Z Standard. It does this by transforming your data before you feed it into a Z Standard compressor. You can run the data first through the GACL. And this will use a couple of techniques. It can shuffle bits around to rearrange data in such a way that it will then compress better. And it can also do lossy compression by using entropy reduction to throw away bits that are not visually important to the quality of the end result. And combining these two techniques, we're seeing about a 50% reduction in data size, even over the top of Z Standard in its original form, which is already pretty good, because Z Standard is a good compressor. So this is really exciting. We're looking at these techniques reducing the sizes of asset data, particularly textures, by a pretty huge amount. And so combining these things, we're looking forward to a world of fast streaming data, very well compressed data, games that don't crash, games that don't have shader compilation glitches, and games that can have more visual detail, higher quality images. I'm really excited to see all five of these techniques come to fruition and getting them in the hands of developers and seeing what developers do with them. I want to finish up just quickly by calling out that we recently hit a big anniversary. DirectX 12 turned 10 years old. I'm super excited to have been around for the entire time that this has been happening, and really excited to still be adding all of these new things to DirectX. We're clearly very far from being done improving DirectX and taking it into new directions. And I want to close by calling out, this is a link to our blog. I moved fairly quickly through a lot of content today. There's a lot more I could say about every one of these topics. And many of these topics have releases coming up in the months to come, where there are going to be previews and then final releases of all of the stuff I talked about. So go to our blog. You will find articles there that have all of the detail that I didn't have time to cover in this quick section. And as we ship things, there will be new articles there showing up with announcements every time we make a major release to DirectX. So that's the place to go to learn more and follow what's going on as we move forward. And thanks for listening along today. This has been a pleasure. And with this, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Brady.
Thanks, Sean. Hi, I'm Brady Woods, and I'm a product leader in the Xbox Commerce team. My team is all about connecting great games with the players who will love them across the Xbox ecosystem. Today, you've heard a bit about where Xbox is going. Xbox available across devices, designed to meet players wherever they choose to play. And you've heard about the great investments we're making to help developers build great games and deliver them across more devices. Now I want to talk a little bit about what comes next, after build, and how the Xbox Marketplace is evolving to help your games find their audience and grow. So let's jump in. Here's a data insight that sets us all up. When we made it possible to browse and buy Xbox content on mobile, we saw increased revenue per player and growth in our transactions per player. What that means is that this player demand was already there. Players wanted to act on their interest, and by giving them that ability on their mobile device, which travels with them, we at Xbox made it easier. For developers, this means every game on Xbox has a storefront presence on every device a player owns, without building anything extra. Your game is already there. This is what the future of play looks like on the commerce side. Players are no longer tied to one screen anymore. And store, for all of us across industries, is no longer a destination. It comes to us, it travels, it's ambient. And this is why our gaming platform needs to meet those players wherever they are. The way we think about it is there are two sides that need to work together. Give developers better tools to get their games in front of the right players, and give players better experiences to find and enjoy those games. When both sides work, it creates a flywheel. Better tools, better experiences, everybody wins. That's how great games find players who will love them, and how those players keep coming back for more. On the developer side, our marketplace investments are organized around 3 key areas, and we're going to walk through them. First, we're helping developers build excitement and capture player intent before a game launches. Second, we're giving developers the tools to grow their game after launch with self-serve tools for promotion, offers, and merchandising. And third, we're investing in data and insights underneath all of it so that developers can see what's working and make informed decisions and respond to player signal. That's the developer half of the flywheel. I'll show you how it pulls through to the player side shortly, but first, let me walk you through what we're building and what's live today. To start us off, one of the biggest things we heard from developers was make it easier for players to show they're interested before a game even launches. So we're investing in wish lists and game preview. When your game gets announced, Xbox is there to help you capture that moment. That's why we are making wish lists simpler, with easier setup, time to release display, and notifications that let players know the moment a game they're following is ready for them. For developers, that means real demand signal before launch day. And for players, it means fewer missed launches. And we're refreshing our game preview experience. In the new experience, developers get a streamlined onboarding path, better analytics, and we're creating a dedicated game preview channel on the store so that players who are looking for something to try early have a curated place to find it. And developers with early access titles get real discovery, not just a label on their page. This means players get to try games earlier, give feedback, be a part of shaping the experience. It's a way to build community around a game before it even ships, which is core to what returning to Xbox is all about. The other thing we kept hearing was when a game has a moment, developers need to be able to move fast. Think about it. A content creator plays their game on a platform like this one, and it trends on social, driving new interest. They need to get a connection with players while that energy is still live. That's why we're building self-serve tools that let developers create and launch promotions directly. We're building 2 types. First, our store-wide sales for broad promotions, and second, our targeted offers that surface the right deal to the right player based on what they've played, wishlisted, or shown interest in. This means better deals reaching players who actually want them faster. Our store-wide promotions tooling will be live later this quarter, and our self-serve targeted offers tooling is already live and delivering outcomes for creators in private preview today, with our public preview coming later this month. And to make deals even easier to find and redeem, we have Offer Wallet. Offer Wallet is a new player experience on Xbox. It's one place where all of a player's available offers live. Platform offers like Game Pass offers and developer offers together in one place. No hunting for codes, no copy and pasting discount codes. It's all right there, ready to redeem. This experience is live on console and web today for players, and we're expanding to PC and mobile later this year. Over time, we will extend Offer Wallet to be self-serve also, so that developers can schedule their own offers to sit right along our platform promotions. You'll be able to schedule things like buy plus get deals, or offer virtual currency gifts to players who have engaged in some time. It's another way for developers to maintain a direct connection with their players. And we're investing in deep linking. This ties back to meeting players where they are. Instead of sending players to a generic store page when they click on an in-game item promotion on our platform, deep linking takes them straight into your game's experience. You can land them in an event, an in-game store, a content drop, one tap, and they're there, getting to fun faster. Looking ahead, more flexible merchandising is something we're building toward. Every game is different, each unique, and we believe how a game shows up on the store should reflect the vision the developer has for it. Our ambition is to give developers the ability to customize their store presence, organize multiple titles by franchise, choose layouts for their game pages, highlight what makes their game unique. For developers, this means more control over how players experience their product page.
For players, it means richer, more informative store pages that make it easier to understand what a game offers, what it's like, how it'll be to play. We're excited about where this is heading and to give more control to our developers on how their game shows up on Xbox. Think of it as your storefront in our storefront. Lastly, on the developer side, we're investing in data and insights. This is the foundation that makes everything else smarter. We are building dashboards into the Xbox Marketplace tools that show developers what's happening with their titles in near real time. Things like page views, wish lists, and purchases across the Xbox storefront, all refreshing and available for developers to see with 5-minute granularity. The full purchase funnel, visible and actionable, so you can respond to player signal faster. And for studios with their own data teams and analytics infrastructure, we're also delivering raw event-level data directly into their systems as it happens. No more pulling, polling, or waiting for reports. The same data that powers our dashboards is now available in yours. Better data means developers can make better decisions about how they operate. They can build in concert with their players by receiving signal and acting on it. That leads to better games and better experiences across the board. That's the developer side of the flywheel. Pre-launch tools, post-launch promotions, and real-time data. Now, let's talk about how this pulls through to the player side, because the tools developers build with directly power the experiences players see. We talked about how players are moving across device. We showed you this with mobile. On Xbox, your game's presence moves with them. That's the future of play on Xbox. Wishlists and libraries sync across console, PC, handheld, and mobile. Xbox Play Anywhere games lets players pick up right where they left off on any device. And our cloud gaming extends reach even further, putting your games on smart TVs, streaming sticks, and more. After launch, the platform keeps working for developers and players alike. When a developer runs a promotion using the self-serve tools we just talked about, players see it. Discount badging surfaces automatically across every storefront. And our dynamic channels are curated collections to update based on what's relevant right now for players. New releases in a genre they love, games their friends are playing, or titles that have recent updates. It's not a static storefront. It adapts to what each player cares about. Our smarter recommendations surface games when we have high confidence a player will love them, not just when something is on sale or has just launched. And we're investing in serendipitous discovery too. Better search, better filtering, better ways for players to stumble onto their next favorite game 6 months after launch. As your game evolves, with new seasons, new content drops, new reasons to come back, our platform evolves how it presents that value to players. This is what a return to Xbox looks like on the commerce side. It's a platform that keeps investing in the relationship between developers and the players who love their games long after launch day. So that's the picture. Great games, discovered by the right players, supported by real-time data, and presented beautifully across every screen. Pre-launch to post-launch to the future of play, all part of a marketplace built to connect developers with the communities that'll love what they build. And we're not building this alone. All the tools you saw here today are a product of the partnership we have with our developer community, understanding their needs and helping them build for what's next. We're going to keep investing here. Subscribe to stay connected on what's coming and travel over to MicrosoftGameDev.com to learn more. Back to you, Annette.
Thank you, Brady. We hope you've enjoyed the overview of some of our most mission-critical GDC talks. We're excited to share more of our presence at GDC, which brought 20,000 developers together in San Francisco this past March. Today, we're going to highlight Xbox's G4E community event, which is intended to cultivate a welcoming, inclusive space where developers can connect, share experiences, and build meaningful relationships across the industry. The event drew hundreds of energetic developers and Xbox's communities who participated in activities like our interactive Why I Game Wall, where developers told their stories through engaging table topics, jammed out with a live DJ, picked up swag, and so much more. Now, please enjoy a few words from our community leads and a message from Team Xbox.
We've been doing this for years. I think probably since 2017, some variation of this event. And I think it's really important because it shows that Microsoft cares.
The space that we created today is especially important to continue telling the stories of the people that are playing the game. And we are here to do that and make the connection so that everyone's stories and games can be played.
So the fact that we even have this in the first place is incredibly meaningful. It's like one step of like, hey, we want you here, you're at the table. And so having it build up for us to be able to have a presence, and then also that we're building a culture that is thinking globally, that we're thinking of our players in a global sense, and we're looking forward.
I love spaces like the G4E Lounge because it's got everybody here. Seeing people that are within your community, but you're also seeing people that are in other communities. You get to talk to them, learn a little bit about them, maybe learn something you didn't know before.
This is an inclusive space for people. Everybody's welcome. They're going to have a place of belonging, and they can see themselves not only in just the games, but in our companies.
For an individual who wants to be a developer, that they can aspire to go to a company that recognizes that if they've got a need or if they're part of a niche group, that they're not by themselves. That's what this community space is about, to be supportive of each other.
Getting into veterans in gaming is to make sure that our veterans feel seen, valued, and heard, and they have opportunities for professional development and growth, along with the process that they go through to get jobs here in this gaming industry, or any industry for that matter.
Biggest takeaways that people have is that they are part of a much bigger entity, not even just in gaming, not even just in tech, but also just being part of a community that actually supports them.
I think the one thing I want people to get out of the experience in the G4E community today is to know that they're not alone and that together we thrive stronger than if we're alone.
To me personally, Black Gaming Network means I get to have a real impact in an industry that I care deeply about. And I get to connect people with opportunities and experiences that I've had the privilege to experience myself.
Microsoft, as large as it is the home for a lot of people. And at the end of the day, even though we work in different industries or doing different things or touching different parts of the business, we're really one community, one family almost. And we're all just trying to make things better for people who come after us.
All we want is you to be your best self. So come as you are, speak how you want, just show up, have fun, and be a good person.
So we can foster connections, we can help instill inspiration in a future generation, and we can be here and know that we're not on our own.
This is the best event ever. I got to meet people that represent who I am, community I want to be a part of, and it changed my life. So I've come here every year, and that's why I want to come back every year to support the people here.
We're excited to deepen our relationship with game creators around the world and help them reach new audiences and learn from each other.
Don't worry, it's almost done. This has been so long.
Remain a priority for us to this day. We love to explore new and original ideas. With a little bit of pressure and creativity, something interesting is created that wasn't there before.
At Xbox, we're just incredibly lucky to work with so many creative teams across the industry.
This is a passion project for all of us here.
マイクロソフトの最先端クラウドテクノロジーとその未知なる構想への挑戦がようやく可能となりました。
It's handcrafted entertainment full of love, made for real people, by real people, which is amazing.
Across everything we did at GDC, a few themes came through consistently. First, helping developers build for what's next with confidence, through tooling, guidance, and a platform that scales with their ambition. Second, enable teams to reach players across devices and playstyles, with experiences that feel coherent and high quality. Third, reduce friction so developers can iterate faster, from onboarding to production to launch. The headline coming out of GDC is momentum. We're investing in the developer experience, showing up with expertise, and aligning around messages that matter. Empower creators, simplify the path to players, and build for the future. If you're shaping your roadmap now, we're excited to keep the conversation going and to build what's next together. And with that, Chris, back to you to close us out.
Oh, thanks, Annette. Yeah, as we wrap up, we really just want to say thank you for spending this time with us. We hope you can feel our excitement about great games, the future of play, and the return to Xbox. And that all really starts with you in the dev community. You know, building games is an incredible endeavor. It's full of excitement, challenges, constant learning and discovery. But hopefully moments like this can give us space to pause for a second, reflect, and move forward together. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you can take what's useful, revisit what matters, explore the resources that are linked alongside this session. We really hope you enjoyed what we shared today, and we hope to see you again soon. Take it easy, everybody.
All right, so that was the game dev update. So just like a quick run through, something that I need to make abundantly clear that I actually didn't know when going into this is this was basically just a recap of what was it called again? GDC. Which was an event I forgot when they specifically held it, but they held it, I'm pretty sure, back in like February or January of this year. It was somewhere around there. And they revealed a bunch of interesting stuff. I never actually watched it, but I saw some of the highlights and stuff on Twitter. So it turns out this was basically just a recap of that, but actually being able to watch it myself was quite nice. I wasn't too talkative throughout that whole thing. And it's because like I did find some of the things interesting, but I didn't really have anything that I wanted to elaborate on specifically. So yeah, I thought it was a generally interesting thing to watch. But I will be the first one to admit, everything relevant was mostly like the first 35 minutes. Everything past that point was like developer stuff, and and I'm not a game dev, so I'm not too interested in that side of things. But yeah, definitely the first 35 minutes were the most interesting part of this entire thing. So yeah, anyways, I'm going to end this live stream, and then I'm going to go take a piss, so like 5 minutes. I'm going to go on to the next one, which is the Nacon Connect 2026, which I am an official co-streamer of. So if you want to jump into that one, this live stream is actually scheduled right now, so you can just click on it. Anyways, I'm going to end it, and all good. I think that was, it was kind of interesting. All good.